Hope some more participants will join soon. See that everyone should be on the time so that it will be easier for us to rather start on time and finish on time also. So we have with us Professor Hakan, and I'm in touch with him for the last almost 6-7 months, right from starting the writing proposal, then interacting with him, like how we should conduct this particular GAN course. Thanks to our Government of India, IIT Hyderabad, they approved this one particular course, and it's a unique thing, frankly speaking, wherein we talk about the startup. There are a lot of GAN courses which have been already approved, but this is the only course wherein the startup world is rather incorporated. So I hope everyone has aware of the CV of Professor Hakan, but let me quickly tell you that Professor Hakan is presently the professor in Uppsala University in Sweden, and I'm really happy to tell you that the GAN course which we have concluded last week, there the expert was from KTS Sweden. Now Professor Hakan is also from Sweden. So we have a nice so-called the badge wherein you can see that there is a so-called flag of Sweden and India together. So that's great, and we will be now listening to Professor Hakan, who has a wonderful career profile, wherein you'll see that even while coming from hotel to this room, he talked so much about the various companies, what are the problems and all that. So ultimately, we are fortunate enough to be with him for in this particular GAN course. You can go through his biodata or CV, but I would like to tell you some interesting thing is that he has founded many companies, and the name is Xerox AB, Empicure AB, Oz Design AB, Vaishyan AB, Leak Gas AB. So this AB is continuous there. It talks about company.
AB means company, limited company.
Limited company.
Yeah, no,
yeah,
it's a company.
that's
Yeah.
great. So these are all the companies he has founded, and many more he is associated with. I'm happy to tell you that he has also a good collaboration here in India, and helping many companies to actually come out with a product related to the medical devices. His H index is 54. We are really impressed the way with the publications and all that. As a unique combination of a researcher and at the same time the entrepreneur, mentor. So you are all fortunate enough, and the VNIT, that we have Professor Hakan with us, and we will be now exploring this field of the startup, where if you look at the title again, that we have written medical devices startup, sustainability and scalability. So startup is the best word for the last so many years, at least 5-10 years. But ultimately, we would like to see that this startup should be sustainable. At the same time, it should be scaled. Already, I had told you in my last lecture that why there is a need of startup in India. I don't want to take you more time because everybody is eager to listen to Professor Hakan. So, Professor Hakan, please. Thank you.
Thank you. So I will start actually by saying a few words about where I come from, because I will come back to not to actually where I come from, but the environment where you are located. Not us, but in general, researchers, and because it connects to the startup world as well. So this is Uppsala. So Uppsala is a traditional old European, European university city. The city has 200,000 inhabitants and 60,000 students. So if you do percentage-wise, Uppsala is actually the hospital, a few life science, medical device companies, and it's the university. That's Uppsala. And it has been like this since 1477. So it's the oldest university in the Nordic countries. We were late in Europe. So, we had the Roman Empire, at the time where Jesus was born. And then the Roman Empire fell. Then in history we had the Vikings up where we live. And then it took a few more years before we had a priest coming down, it was actually a Swedish guy, who went down to Europe, came back, and started to say we could also do some thinking. You know, we were very, Vikings. It was just to eat and survive. It's a tough country to live in because it's cold. So thereby, a lot of our personality comes from also it's dark and it's cold. So we have from now, November to February, the sun just go above the sun never rises really. So we get light from 10 o'clock and then it goes down at 3. Then it's dark. So to compare from where you are, I mean, it's like the opposite. You see what I mean? So Sweden has been it's a tough country to live in. Now it's good, but I will tell you, I give you a short expose of where I'm coming from. So then slowly we started to do some thinking. We were like around 1,000 years behind the rest of the Southern Europe. We had the Greeks and the Romans. They started with the democracy and all of that, and then 1,000 years later it came to Sweden. We had I'll tell you a story later on in history. We had a time in history where we were warriors. We were quite Vikings, and then we were a warrior country. We tried to take a big part of Europe, and then we had a few tough 100 years, and then the Industrial Revolution came. And Sweden is a big country. We only have 10 million people in a big country. So we have 10 million, and I think we are roughly 20 people per square kilometer. So if you come to visit Sweden, you will go to Uppsala and a little bit north, and then you can drive for hours. There's no people. It's just forest. But we have forest, we have water, and we have a lot of iron. We are a mineral country. So when the Industrial Revolution came, Sweden were very good at finding mines. So we were, that gave us, the Industrial Revolution was important for Sweden. And it was that all from the 1600th century, but then especially from the 1800s and onwards, Sweden have been getting our wealth initially from natural resources. Then later on we've become a high-tech country. So we have a few personality things around. Swedish people were quite silent. We don't say much, especially for those who come up north. And we are used to the darkness, so we are used to work quite hard just to survive. That's in our genes. And another thing that I've learned is that we have what's called a consensus people. So we like to have consensus, and then when we have that, we stick to it. And that's very important when you build companies. Thereby, quite big brands in the world have come, like IKEA and other things, comes from Sweden. We have many of these examples. And there is something with that. And what I've learned, the present might not be, this is what I've learned, is that our personality is that when we decide, you can trust us. We never surrender. We just continue. Many other personalities or countries, they try, I didn't work, I tried this and I tried that, but we are persistent. And that when we have gone through many of our now big companies in the world, when they started, at some point they started, and at some point it was tough. And then we had the persistence. One thing maybe except from IKEA, one thing that people might know is Tetra Pak, the package for milk. That's a Swedish innovation, and there are books written about this. The family was called Rausing family. But I've read 2 of the books, but it took them 15 years to develop it. It was an idea, and then it took them 15 years to make the actual package to deliver milk in a better way. So afterwards it seems like it was a bright idea, everything was good. No, it was took people their life to develop these. Okay. So this is Uppsala. I would say a few words. We are ranked around 100 in the world. We go a little bit up and down on the ranking, but around 100. We have a lot of old traditions, especially connected to students and PhD students. We have what's called nations. A nation is every student belongs to a nation, and the nation have tax exemptions. So you get like your own student ID connected to a nation, and you go there, you can eat. They offer it's like in the old world. They offer all the leisure that you would like to have. So there are everything from restaurants to living to movie theaters. It's within the culture settings of the students. So they get very much connected to each other. And the students also offer, since it's a big university, everything from religion to engineering, space, everything. I think we have a few topics that we don't teach, but the most of it we have. But they all meet at the nations. Otherwise, I don't know how it is here, otherwise you are at your campus area and you don't meet the financial students, you don't meet. In Uppsala you do. Everyone, yeah, if you would like to, but then you need to go to these nations and participate. We have got 8 Nobel Prizes. Some of the persons you might recognize. One is this one, Celsius, the thermometer, comes from Uppsala. So he's one of them. Let's see, Linné, taxonomy, ordering of the plants, the sexual system of the plants, was Linnaeus. He lived in the city center of Uppsala. His garden is still there and his house is still there. One can go for a visit. I do that quite often. It's super nice just to sit there. They built a very nice cafe next to it, so it's actually very nice. Rudbeck, lymphatic system, was mapped out in Uppsala at a specific theater. It's still there also. It's an old museum. And Ångström, of course, is where I reside. And also you do physics, the Ångström scale. He was splitting light. Okay. I will then say, I can say this, where I belong. So we have the university, we have faculties, and I belong to Faculty of Engineering, Science and Engineering. Department of Material Science, Materials and Engineering. Then I'm heading the Division of Applied Material Science. And then in that we have 3 different groups. One is tribal materials, one is electron microscopy, and I then run the biomedical biomaterials group. So I will switch presentation. So I will say a few words more about me, who I am. Okay. So I'm brought up at the countryside of Sweden. So my father was a carpenter and my mother worked at the hospital in the reception, telephone reception. But my relatives and all my relatives, we live in that countryside. My mother's side came during the Second World War from Finland. When the Russians came, they were at war and they took everything from them. So they all immigrated to Sweden, put their lands at a specific place in Sweden where I then were brought up. So I'm brought up with, we were very entrepreneurial. We tried to make business out of everything. But we were doing it on selling dirt. So we bought land where there was a lot of gravel and dirt, and we sold that to big construction companies building roads and stuff like that. So very entrepreneurial, always business, but on the more from the worker side. So that's my upbringing. So and I had a lot of cousins, all the boys. So we were and on the countryside. So it was from a Swedish perspective, quite of unstructured, I would say. So very entrepreneurial, but also we were tough to each other, I can tell you. So that was my upbringing. I'm the only one of all my cousins and brothers and so on that have been. My oldest brother, he also went to agriculture university. He now runs a business selling biofuel. That means forest. He sells forest to burn. So me and him, but then I was the only one, except from that have went to university. So I was a little bit of an outsider. And that is also defining me in a way, still. So I'm still, in Swedish perspective, I'm an outsider. I have my own business model. I do whatever I what I decide. I don't follow any. I have no mentor, no advice, nothing. I just go. So that was me. So up until 18 years old, I was quite like a wild country person. Driving motorcycles. I will not go into that, but I wasn't a criminal. But half. It was a tough life. Anyway, and then from these years, I then transformed. I realized I was always good in school. So I never got into any problems because I was good in school. So, and in that period I went to university and then I took my PhD. And I took my PhD through a company called Sandvik. It's a big mining and tooling company. And I know they're very active here. Sweden have many companies, subsidiaries in India connected to mining. So Atlas Copco is Swedish, Sandvik is Swedish, I think Epiroc is another one. I think there are 3 or 4 of them. I have many friends who commute all the time here, and some are even living in India, connected to mining. Okay, and then I became PhD at 27. And then I left and I went to start and work for venture capital funded company. As a head of R&D, I did dental materials, medical device for dentistry. So I did that for this period of my life. These years are very important, I think, in all careers because it set the stage for next. So the PhD time is important, and then the next 10 years is very important as well because it gives you the push for whatever you would like to do next. It's always more difficult to change when you are around 40. To do career changes then is difficult. Before that, everything is possible, and suddenly nothing is possible. Okay. So I did that, I worked, and I loved it. I think we had no money 13 times. So you can make an Excel sheet, and you see now we have this amount of money, it goes to 0, and you need more. It's like, the shape of the curve is like this. Yeah, I just loved it. It was perfect for me. Then I left, and because I thought I don't learn more. Here I've learned enough. I know how to raise money. I've been through this many times. We've been for sale. We looked for licensing partners. We launched products. And main outcome from that, except from my personal learning, was a product called Ceramir. It's a dental cement where you can use to adhere dental crowns and bridges to the tooth. So it's a dental cement. It's still sold quite good. It still sells quite well in the US. And I was then the first, academically at that time, we were the first, I was the main author for a paper where we were the first one publishing on bioactive dental materials. I'm still proud we did a clinical study, we were able to prove that I will not go through technically what it is because that will take the full of this course, but still, that was the outcome. Then I left, and then I went to the university, which is it almost never happens. So I did my PhD for a big company, then I worked for a small company, venture capital funded, and then went back to university again. And I will go through a little bit around that. But I went back and I started my own research group and so build it from nothing. So to say I didn't have any money, but I got the prize from it's a foundation, but it's a private foundation. It's a guy in Sweden who became rich on real estate from the Nordic part of Sweden. So those who've been to Sweden, there is a big, it's not a supermarket, it's like Macy's at least, but it's called Åhléns. He's the guy who used to own all of these buildings in all of Sweden. He made a lot of money out of this. So he then started a foundation because he thought he should give something back to the academic world, and I got his major prize, and that prize were able for me to start building a research group. So I used that, so we were 2-3 people in a small lab. So I started at that point in time, and I also worked for the university to connect university to big companies and sign agreements between. So I had like 2 jobs. And then I applied for to become, my professor retired. And now it has been a reform in Sweden. I don't know how it works in India, but at that point in time, when a professor retired, all positions were advertised openly, so everyone can apply. And then career-wise, if you're young in that age, I was still young, that system. So then I applied to become for his position, and I was then ranked number 2. There was a guy from Germany, very well known material science professor, who was ranked number 1. But I knew that he will never come to Uppsala because in Germany the professor position is more highly paid and they also get more package with the professor position. In Sweden it's less payment and the package for research is less. It's still good, but it's not as good as in Germany. So I knew he will never leave that position in Aachen, which is a super good university, and come to Uppsala. I don't think that will never happen. So then I became head of the division, and suddenly then I was head of the division for persons who've been part of my PhD time. So I kind of backtracked the system, and I will tell you soon why I was able to do that. So for up until I became 50, I went all on. I started a few companies. I will go through them later, how that all worked. But I, went all on. And then around COVID time, I started to think about, because one of the topics when you and I discussed before was this combination of academic entrepreneur. Is this a good idea? So then I've been working full-time, research group, 60 persons, and then having companies on the side, being in the board, having to raise money. I started saying, and I will go through a little bit how much money these companies have been raising. So then I thought, there's something wrong in the system. And I still haven't figured this out. So then I left on part-time when I was a little bit over 50, and I became CEO of a Nasdaq-listed company. So then I was CEO, instead of just being professor and doing this, I thought that if I do this smartly now, I will still be a professor, but on a little bit lower, and I would be like a full-time entrepreneur. But the way it all turned out, I became then CEO of a Nasdaq-listed company and still the professor. So now I work 60-40. I'm 60% at the division, and now I'm 40% at the company. Now I'm not CEO anymore. I will tell you the story how all of this happened. I thought I was doing a shift, but in reality it's just continued. I didn't get out of this dual role. I'm still in the mix of, so I do everything. So at the moment, so that's what I do. So I think this is what it's all about. So this is from Stanford, exploration, innovation. So this is what more or less what I'm going to talk about for the rest of these 2 days. And another way of looking at it is when we work at university, we get money to create knowledge or create students. And what I then pitch is that we need to transfer knowledge to money or needs. It needs to go back. And this has been a very, I don't know the Indian system at all, which is good for me, I have no idea, but I know the European system quite well. And eventually, so universities belong to educational department at the governments. And then we would have an industrial department, which is separate. And politicians then suddenly start to ask the question, okay, we go money from the education department to the universities and we educate people. So that's our main, what the rest of the society sees from a university, we see the people that comes out. But we don't see, but if you look at, for example, my own research division, 25% of my budget comes from teaching. For the full division, 75% is research. And then of course if you look at that, so it's 3 times more money spent on the research side than on the teaching side. What do we get out of these 75%? As a society. And then there was a big investigation done in Europe. This is common for all of Europe, the same thinking. So then they did an investigation in Europe by the President Barroso at that time, who was the head of the European Union. He put the finger on this. We spend so much money on the universities. They do their research. As soon as we ask them, the politicians ask them, what do you do with the money? Don't ask us. We are free. We are free. You shouldn't ask me. And then they said, no. This is not okay. We still give you money. You need to tell us. So this is called the autonomy discussion. Should we be totally free at the university? Or should we be accountable for the money we get? Politicians, of course, that would like us to be accountable and say, this is what I've done. And I'm not saying we do anything fraudulent, it's just that what do we actually give back except when we spend the money? Okay, so then I learned that, so there was a big investigation done in Europe, and they came back, they looked at the quality of the students, quality of the papers, and how much financial growth we get. And then we see in Europe we have very good education, the quality of the courses and quality of students, top class, fine. Publication-wise, we're top class, we're fine. Then we compare all over the world. But when it comes to making business out of it, we are less good. And so then was a big study made, continues to this, when they saw the data, okay, where are they good at? At the hotspots in the world. MIT, Stanford, we can go through all of them, Oxford, Cambridge. They all created as well very good companies that has become unicorns, and you all know about the Stanford story, which might be the best then. But then there is a list of these mega sites in the world. And the same goes then for part of what they've been doing in China is also growing quite extensively. And what they have been doing is to integrate what's called the knowledge triangle, connected to, that's what when I say infrastructure, I will go through what it means. So you have, this is the creation system. We have education, creation of knowledge, and you have innovation. Sometimes the innovation is sometimes called, there are different names of this, but they're all, if you see this in the future, it's called the knowledge triangle. It's very modern. And this is the reason why I became professor. Because at that time, when I applied for my professorship, I knew that I haven't been teaching a lot because I spent my time at the company. I had been teaching enough, so I went over the bar. There is a minimum. I was just above the minimum. I'd been doing publication, was fine, but I had this part. And in this time in Sweden, this was a very modern discussion, how to integrate the knowledge triangle to the big universities. I still like this. I think it's an excellent idea. And the problem in Europe is that we distribute the money too much. So just in Sweden, we have 3-4 places, or even maybe more, that says that there are university hotspots. But you remember I told you we're only 10 million people. So we are not that many, we still distribute a lot. So maybe in Sweden we can afford to have one place where we pour in most of the funding. And that was actually the first suggestion in Europe was that in Europe the politicians move between Brussels and Strasbourg. So there is a Strasbourg place. The suggestion was to skip that, make that to the European Institute of Technology, the EIT. It should be there. And we should pour in tons of money to the EIT in Strasbourg. The member countries then said no, because that would be brain drain. We would move all the best brains to Strasbourg. We take the best from Sweden, move them there. So everyone said no. So now this EIT is run differently in Europe. It's good, but it's not as good as if they would have placed one place and focused. Because that's what, if you think about Stanford, MIT in this place, this is just one place. So this is what is needed to be able to create startups. If you come from research, I mean education startups, you can do other types of startups. But when I talk about the specific as in medical devices and more high-tech things, these are what's needed. You need to have people that are educated. You need to have access to knowledge, research, infrastructure when it comes to that. And the innovation is not, I'm not talking about an idea here. I'm talking about an infrastructure for this. That means that it needs to be offices, there needs to be different types of funding locally, there needs to be business people. There are a long list of what is needed to create a company. And it cannot be created from thin air. It doesn't work. it's just that it is so. All of this is needed to be able to create a company. So you need a network of people, you need a network of money, you need a network of. When I say infrastructure, in this case, you also need offices, labs, equipment. Initially, it's impossible to buy all the equipment needed. You need to be able to go to an institute, to an academic, say, hi, I need this measurement, would you help me with the cost? So all of that is needed to be able to create a future company. So I'm now, I will now go through a little bit what is models for creation of companies locally that I've seen all over the world, and I would say give a few Swedish experience. The first question when you work at the university is who owns the IP, the patents? Who owns them? I will have a specific then lecture of patents a little bit later, but that's the first question. That is that in all of this infrastructure that I just talked about, the knowledge triangle, who owns the patent? Because initially the one who owns the patent, because we when we create something, it's very difficult to create it. We are not going to. I don't anticipate that we are not going to sell a new, simpler appliance or so that we can easily. There is no IP. We just manufacture. This is going to be something that requires. There's an idea. There is an unmet need. We're going to be in patent that covers whatever now we're going to do. And who owns that? That's a little bit different at different places in the world. In Sweden, we own it ourselves. So whatever we invent, we own. The university have no ownership of patents. Of course, that gives a person like me, my background now, and the relatives coming from the war, there's, we fight. And we get this opportunity, you have an idea, you own the patent, please do something. That functions very well for me. That's excellent for me. So I've been living with that for all my work life now, so I'm good on that. But that's a thing that needs to be figured out very early, and if you're a PhD student, a researcher, whoever you are, you should have that thinking. Who owns the IP here, and how is that handled? So that's the first step. Then, hotspots I talked about. Well, we're going to come back to that. Some places, so university normally have a tech transfer office. Let's call it. That's the one. If the university owns IP, I would say they need to have a tech transfer office. Otherwise, I would be upset. But even Uppsala University have a tech transfer office, which is a combination of part of that is owned by the university. It's called Uppsala University Innovation, I think. And then we have an investment company called Uppsala University Invest. So these two we have. And they will then form, and then there is an Uppsala Innovation Center. So we have 3 steps for this. That's the Uppsala model in Stockholm. They have Stockholm Innovation and Growth, STING. I've looked a lot at the incubators in the US, which is more business driven, where they offer, normally they can have, once you look for incubators to have, in our case, there would be medical device incubators. So an incubator focuses on medical devices, and then some of these incubators takes a part of the company, but they also provide funding. So when you get admitted, they take a part of the company, but they also put in funding, which is actually not that bad. So in Sweden, we don't have that system, so everything is free. So it's up to you to pick. I can go to the Uppsala University Innovation and say, please help me. They cannot force me. If I say, I don't want your help, okay, then you're free to do whatever. I could go to the Uppsala University Invest and say, could you please invest in my company? But there's no requirement. It's a negotiation as any investor. They have some offer something and others, so that's two. And then the Uppsala Innovation Center is also, I just apply and you get admitted, and then you could connect. And they have offices, and it's more of a network, I would say. They help you with a business plan. They help with office space. maybe a little bit in that space. But then they have a lot of meetings. And sometimes when you start a company, you're very alone. It's just you and maybe one or two persons. So it becomes a network of small companies, and they meet regularly. There are talks about financing, legal stuff, how to make an agreement. They invite different types of, it could be international, how do you scale your business internationally? There's someone coming giving a talk, so you can go and listen. So there is like a seminar. And I think that's quite good, but it's all free. You choose. But I would say that you need to check this first. Who owns this? If you own it yourself, you do my way, the way I do it, you select. But if the university owns it or the institute owns it, you need to then have someone at the tech transfer office you need to negotiate with. There is most likely a structure then for how this would work. And I encourage locally then the university or the institute, they need to be very clear about this. If there's anything then coming out, if the institute owns the IP, this institute owns its IP, then it needs to be very clear. Everyone should know, okay, if I have a patent, this is what's going to happen. Otherwise it's just going to be a black box, nothing comes out. Okay, so that's for you then. Hotspots, they connect to investments. At some point, maybe you have a great idea, but it's not for Nagpur. Maybe the great idea should instead be in Mumbai, because you would know maybe this is the best place to be. Then I encourage you to connect to Mumbai. However you do it, you might still live here, but you should have an office, you should connect to it. Because investors, when they come, they know. They could be the first, I will go through what I've done, but the first investments are normally done by family, friends, close people. That's the normal way. They might not know, they might trust you as a person and say, I invest in you, and whatever. But the next step, when you go for more institutional money, they know. They would know, okay, you don't have the right infrastructure. Maybe they're better in Mumbai. In my case, maybe it's better at Karolinska in Stockholm, because they are ranked number 50 in the world in life science. Place your company there, the value goes up. You see what I mean? It's just the way, this is the world, how it works. If you're prepared to move. Take the cost, whatever it is, move, if you believe in it. But don't sit in the wrong place and try to build a big business, because you will never get the investments. And then I say, if you're able to do it, I say, okay, all respect to you. Because that's difficult. It's super difficult to do that. And I have been through this many times, and some of my companies should have been started in the US. I will go through one of my latest one, where we only develop for the US. Of course, that should be placed in the US. Now we're still in Uppsala, but I know that in that case, most likely my evaluations and the time will be slower than if I would have placed it in the US. But then I need to move. And then I say, I will most likely I will not move. And then so I will not complain, because I know from the start that this is going to be tougher for me than if it was a US company, okay? So I've said a few things about Sweden. At least this is my experience. Sweden is run, the university is run according to what's called the Humboldt system. Those of you who've been to physics, you know about Humboldt. But he was also, except from being a good physician, he was also very good on creating academic system. So he created a system in where Sweden and in Uppsala and Lund in Sweden is run according to the Humboldt administrational system. Okay, and that means we have a dual leadership. We have a rector and we have a university director. University director is head of, I think, if I get fired, I think it's the director who will fire me. And that's more of a permanent position. And the rector we have for 9 years. I think it's 4 plus 5, 5 plus 4 years. I think it's 9 years or 8, 4 plus 4, it might be 8 years. We have the rector, then we exchange. That's more of a position, it's much more external and strategic. So I think the rector decides more about the money, whereas the director decides about the personnel and the more long-term, the premises and the rents and these type of things. And the rector is more strategic and takes decisions where if we should spend money on some new research direction or so. Okay, but it's so that's we have a dual leadership. in my then, close to me, I have a prefect. The prefect is my boss. So she is the one who, takes care of my salaries and rents and checks all my invoices. And then I have a dean. And the dean is responsible for the research and strategies around that. And there's a dual, and why I mention is that on the top of the university there's money coming in, then it floats down to my level where I get funding, and it's very free. So the Uppsala University is let all flowers bloom. So there are two ways. Otherwise you can have a very strict, this is the things we're going to do, it comes top down. KTH, you had Anna last week, that's a top down. They decide from the top. This is what we're going to, more like a business. And Uppsala University is very free. So most likely I can go and sit and write a book for 3 years, if I would like to, if I think that's the best for my research direction. Of course the group will be very small, but I will write my book. And that's also good for the future. Whereas at the more top down, there will not be any books. So I will just tell you this about books, because I've been to meetings in Sweden where industry, the big industry, summons all the professors and say, you need to write new teaching books, because what you teach at university is too old. When I see what you teach on metals and aluminum and whatever it is, you're like 5-10 years behind what we now do. So when we get your students, they don't even know what we're doing, so we need to teach them again. So this is a second topic, but it's actually entrepreneurial for those who like to make money off writing books. That's actually not a bad idea. So to have your ears to the ground and write teaching books for university students that are more up to date. Anyway, so we have the teachers what we call the teachers exemption, which is an important part of being innovative for me. You need to figure out what system you have here. We have incubators and we have tech transfer office. These are important things to note. I will soon go through much more in detail about this, but we have, so I'm quite into the local networks of investors. There are, I don't know how elaborated it is here. In India, I have no idea. But in Sweden, there are local networks of, let's say, there are family offices, that's rich families. They normally act alone. They decide themselves. Then there are networks of semi-rich people, that's a diverse. Some of them could be very wealthy to, they're not poor, but they can invest everything in money from. Should I do rupees or I can say rupees. I would say they could invest maybe from 500,000 rupees to 50 million rupees. That you have the spread. And rich families, they can go much above that. There are no limits, more or less. So if you have the super rich ones. But these are the local networks of what's called business angels. So business angel in Sweden normally could invest 500,000 to 50 million rupees in one go. So they then connect like this. So that would be a network. I come there, I give a pitch. I will not go through. I wasn't part of the really, but I could actually give a few words about how to make a pitch. But that's the way you get money. So you meet these networks, and they could be similar to this, but a different venue. Could be at a hotel or somewhere nice where they get dinner and some drinks and so on, and then they then invite 5 companies to pitch, and then maybe I'm one of them. Or so I've been doing that quite many times. Now my own kids do it. They both started their own companies, and now they pitch. And now normally with my newest companies, I don't pitch. Then I go and negotiate directly with some first. So I elevated a little bit about the pitching, but now and then I need to go and pitch for unknown people that I know. I hope that they would invest in my ventures. So that's the local networks. Then in Sweden we have state funds. I think that's in other parts of the world that I know. They maybe will not have money from the state. It could be from the region or the city. Could have innovation funds. Super good. These regional funds are very good because they can do rupee by rupee. So if you invest 1 rupee, the state invests 1 rupee, then I have 2. Which lowers the risk for these type of networks. So many of these networks, local networks that I said is 500,000 and up, they normally look at me and say, did you get the state fund with you? Because they lower their risk. So because they know if I invest 1, you get 1 more. So you double everything up to a certain limit. The state funds normally have a top limit that they could invest. They don't do more. So, but it's actually not that. I've learned to like that. It's lower the risk. In other parts of the world, these incubators in the US that I looked at, they could invest and then they also do dollar by dollar for the first 1 or 2 investments, which lowers the risk for, and it's super important because it helps the companies to grow. Because you will learn, and any one of you who might start a company in the future will see that you have the dream, you will have the business plan, you will have everything there. You know that if I'm successful, this is going to be perfect for me. I'm going to make a step change in financially and maybe also in esteem, career-wise. This is a very good way to go. I think at least you can backtrack or you can shortcut a career a lot by going this route. But you need to work, you need to take high risks and work a lot. Okay, so I like those. So you would see those who get into it, where you get the first financing from determines your fate. So to have the state fund, city fund, regional funds, so in Sweden it's tax money. This is tax money that they take tax money and help. And then they of course then validate a lot of things because it's tax money, so I cannot go to Hawaii and have margaritas. They keep track of you, which is also good for the local investors because they know someone will check this company is going to be okay. So that's good. Then you have venture capital. And venture capital is what it says. And again, if you go to a hotspot in the world, there is much more. Could be 100 times more, 10 times more than what it is, for example, in Sweden. It's a small country. We have a lot of venture capital. But funding-wise, it's not as much. If I would go to London, Paris, Zurich, in Europe, then I would say these are the 3 ones. There are more venture capital. Otherwise, I need to go to the US, where everything is times 10. Competition is higher. Then you really need to give it everything you have, but you might do it, and then then you really have all the no more excuses, just to work and being to create. So venture capital, it's normally then these funds they have a limited timeline. So people create a fund. Let's say all of us in this room, we join together and say we create a venture capital fund, medical device Nagpur, and then we raise that money. All of us, we raise it, and then we might even go to the city of Nagpur and say we raise this amount, and if you put in the same amount, then we have a huge venture capital fund, medical device Nagpur, and we're going to create this. Is going to be the place for medical device in India. This is our dream. Okay, then we get the money. We have a big pool of money we put up. We have a board, we have investment manager. We look for persons that might come from here then that have ideas. And we're going to fund them. And we're going to help with the local networks and the state funds. We're going to do all of that. And we have this pile of money. But normally with this pile of money, they have a limited timeline. They are not evergreen, what's called evergreen. They normally have a time when we say, these we got the money from because someone had invested in us. We'd say to them, we're going to close this fund and it's going to be in 10 years you get your money back. We've done the calculations, the Excel sheet. We say that we're going to give you 5 times the money back in 10 years. That's why they invested in us to start with. So they have a limited timeline on their investments. It's good to know because suddenly they might say, I will not invest anymore. First, you're happy when you get them in. Their contracts are fierce, I will tell you. The contracts are fierce that the venture capital fund, they sign with you privately and with the company. So they sign it with me as a person and they sign it with a company. It's ridiculous. But anyway, so that's what they do. But you also should be aware they have a limited timeline. So let's say they invest in, or we then in this case, we invest in someone, but we only have 5 years left. Then we should sell the company. In 5 years, we're going to sell our shares because we need to pay our investors back. So venture capital is a little bit different, but they are normally very good because they're going for the stars. These might be more friendly. They might invest locally because they like to see a company locally. They they think by themselves, so to say. And especially the city and the state, they would like to have more companies, more people working. There could be other reasons. Venture capital reason is money. Okay, the others, that's important to know. The venture capital is just money. I would like to have my money back. So they're very financially driven. Could be good, could be bad. It depends. I work with all of these. I like them all, in a way. Corporate banks. I've been working quite a lot with a group in Chennai. I know that I would say in India, corporate banks are still a little bit immature. So corporate bank is a different thing. So you have these two, and then you have number 3. And the corporate bank is a bank that help companies find money, and they take a percentage of that. So you go to a banker and you say, hey, I need whatever you now need. Then they say yes. How much of that could you actually raise yourself? And maybe I say 30%. Please help me with the rest of the 70%. I need your help with that. And they say, yeah, I will help you. But they are different. They are very shortly money driven. So if these venture capital firms, they are driven by giving return to their invested, let's say in 10 years time. Corporate banks, directly. They get their money directly. They're very bonus driven. And I'll give you an example. Let's say you need 1 million rupees. They will say, I'll find you 1 million, but then I will take 100,000. So you can then raise 1.1 million. I take 100, and you get 1 million. But you will sell shares for 1.1. And they're very shortly driven on these. That's their life, is their short-term investment money that they get. Okay, and normally you cannot direct them and say, it's difficult to have wishes. They come with whoever investor there is. There are people that sit and just call. They have like Rolodex of numbers of people who might invest, and then they have meetings like this as well, where you come and present, and then you have no idea who is sitting there, who it is, and why. They invite people, and you just go follow there. They give you a schedule. Just travel and go from city to city to city to city and give the presentations. Sign off whatever, like 1 or 2 months of your life, and they will raise the money, help you to raise the money, if there is a good corporate bank. Corporate banks could be international, they could be natural, they could be in the city, it could even be very locally in the city. Many different business ideas around corporate banks. Many of them works that you should get listed. Because if you're listed, it's easier for them to sell the company, because then they say, we have this company X. So let's say again, we are now a venture capital fund in Nagpur, and we need more money to our fund. We go to a corporate bank and say, could you please help us to raise more money? They say yes, but then your fund needs to be listed. Because if you're listed, you can trade in the shares. Then it's much easier for them to sell, because then the people who invest because then they could say, you buy shares in our venture capital company, you get it with 20% rebate. So except from this 1.1 million I told you, they also give a 20% discount on our shares. You see, they trade, it's like car sales. They trade with everything, negotiate everything. There are so many different ways the corporate banks have to find money, that it's immense. And they have answers on everything. And in a way, I like it because it's very clear. If you know what you're getting into, it's okay. It's okay, but you need to play the rule. It's very difficult to go to a corporate bank and say, no, I don't want to get listed, no discounts, nothing. in the end you can just as well go to venture capital and do this again yourself. Okay, so I know people, and I've tried all of these myself, and I know some people who start a company directly with a corporate bank. You know, from the first idea, they get some small money to get started, then they get listed, and they raise all the money on the public listed funds. I guess that in India you'll have different stock exchanges, from very small ones to the mega ones, and they all have different size of a reason. And this might be one of the reasons. The small ones, you might even have a local one in this part of India. You might have your own small stock exchange, but because India is so big, so I would guess that it could be a stock exchange for Nagpur major region, because it encompasses so many people. Go to corporate bank, they help you find money and work. But in the end, I will go through. In the end, what we need to stand for is what we're actually going to develop. The unmet need, the technical solution, all the thing that I talk around now is more things good to know that we need to know. So before we take a break, I will tell you a little bit more what I've been doing before I go into more details that we can discuss over the next 2 days. So I told you in the car here, you know, why am I here? Why did I even come? So I would say these are the companies that I've been part of forming. I've been part of raising 10 billion rupees in these, in funding, roughly. So why am I here? For me, India is the next big thing in medical device. So I need to be here now when you're still very early. So I'm going quite a lot to India. I have 2 major collaborations with a medical device company in Delhi, and one outside Bangalore. So, and I've been doing that through Chennai, through a family in Chennai. I found all of these. So I invest a lot of time going here, and I'm super happy we launched the first product 3 weeks ago in Delhi. It's a dental implant. It's called Apex Connect. It's together with Kamal Medtech. So I go here because this is going to be the place for medical device. And the reason why this is going to be the case is the following. In Europe and the US, medical device and pharma is about 50-50 in total value. Okay, we could check, someone could check, I don't know exactly how, but I think that we could check what is the value of pharma and medical device in India. It's not going to be 50-50, I can tell you.
It's more in the pharma.
Yeah, it's going to be like this. Pharma might be 50 or 100 times bigger in India today. Okay, what's going to happen in India during the next 10, 20 years? It's going to be 50-50. You cannot import this. You don't have this industry at the moment. This industry doesn't exist in India. And if you're going to import these devices, then it's never going to happen by 2 reasons. One is you're going to ship so much money outside India. So I don't think any government will allow that to happen, because it's mega money in the end. You're the biggest country on earth. This is not going to happen. So that's the main reason. And second is also, if you continue to import it, it's not going to reach everyone. Because we set the prices in Europe and the US, it's high prices. So it's only going to be for these who have maybe 10-15% of the population. The others will never reach them, because it's just going to increase all the time. And still the market is big. If you still only sell to 15% of the Indian population with imports, it's still going to be a big market. But of course, from a natural perspective, you need to fix this. So I understand that. And I understand I cannot then start a company in Europe and export here. I need to be here, locally in India, and I need to work with Indian companies to create this, because I cannot do it myself. It's impossible. The same thing was in China 15-20 years ago. Similar. Now they have full cities, medical device cities in India. And they do most themselves at the moment. When I look at it, what I see, they do most of the major implants, they do themselves. Big Indian companies. They are still copying, but I think eventually they will start to be doing more innovative, pushing the limits more, except from copying and doing I'm not saying they're copying things that have patent expired, because they follow the patents. Okay, it's not as we say that they steal. They do, but that's the way we do in Europe as well, and then we sue each other in court. We also steal. Everyone do that. You steal ideas and then you copy and they say, you stole my idea, and then I sue you. That's what we do. Here maybe it's difficult to find someone to sue, but it's the same personal behavior is still there. Okay, but for me it's business. I will try. I'm trying, and so far it's been quite successful, but it takes a lot of commuting back and forth. But we launched a few weeks ago in Delhi at the big dental conference, what's called Apex Connect. So I'm trying to, and this is all done through the company Silox Innovation. It's a dental company. So Silox, we are doing dental materials. It's placed, we have a small manufacturing unit. We have signed an agreement with a company in Bangalore that have the manufacturing rights for our ingredients for India, which is a super good thing. They are now launching products, hopefully in December. I will meet them in Delhi on Thursday. So Silox will meet the Bangalore company in Delhi on Thursday. I hope now that they have their launch plan that we could get that. I haven't got it yet. But they also have the rights to do our core manufacturing, which is good for us because our ingredients is calcium phosphate particle we add to toothpaste for sensitive teeth. Our biggest hurdle to make more business is the price of our ingredients. And we know the biggest price that we have is the labor cost. And if we can get lower labor costs, we will get lower price, we can make more business. So we hope that they will stop manufacturing outside Bangalore in this. But they need to then do some investments. So you see, they will first launch buying products from us, buying the ingredient, they make the formulation, sell in India. When they see that it works, I think they will then start to do all of it here, which is good. That's just good for us. Okay. Design based on additive manufacturing. I will show you the story around that. I've been spending a lot of money on additive manufacturing. So I think maybe at least in Sweden, I might be the single person who has spent most on medical device additive manufacturing business-wise as a startup. Design is now listed. We are selling only in the US. The valuation starts to be quite good actually. Now it's, I think in rupees, it's 15 billion rupees valuation roughly on the stock exchange. And we're selling mainly for spine. So we don't do that much additive anymore. But we're selling a medical device for spinal treatments. It's going quite well. I'm not in the board anymore. I'm not connected, except I have shares, but I'm not involved. That company has been for 15 years. This has been also for quite a long time. But here I'm the chairman of the board still. Amplicure, I didn't add the logo here, but I didn't have the time. So Amplicure, I've been CEO. That was listed at Nasdaq. We were bought out of the Nasdaq Stock Exchange 2 years ago, a little bit more than 2 years ago, by a consortium of investors. So I was CEO, and then I was CEO over the buyout from the stock exchange, and then for another 9 months. And now we have a new CEO, and we have a slightly new direction. So I'm the scientific officer there. And during the last 6 months, I spent a lot of time on Epicure. And we do I'm a material scientist. We do materials, but we deliver active molecules. So I've been working with pain. Nowadays, we deliver nicotine is the main thing that we deliver. And we are selling in Europe and working towards US. Also with Epicure, I've been traveling a lot to India because you have a few very big Indian, especially in tobacco. But you also have tobacco, and next step from tobacco is that they purify the nicotine. And you also have, similar to Sweden, India have a tradition of chewing. You take the nicotine through the orally, as we do in Sweden. So oral nicotine. I'm quite good on oral nicotine delivery. Anyway, Amplicure. Lea Cares is my daughter's company that has now formed a spin-off called EcoYield. EcoYield we are working on as a biostimulant for plants. And Lea Cares is a combination of its local delivery of calcium and silicon for better, first idea was for diabetics patients, but it's for diabetes, but it's not for that anymore. Now it's broadly for people who have weak skin, hair, nails. And there are also medical applications, but those we haven't started to pursue yet. Therapeutics is my latest company. We do bone cancer. So that's the one that I latestly started. And there's just me. I have one young girl just hired, and then we have consultants also placed in Uppsala. But we do bone cancer. This is what we have been doing with OsDesign. Those of you might be into additive manufacturing. We have been working with mega cranial implants. So looking like that. So it's done through the traditional additive manufacturing route. CT scan, you do the CAD files, print, and then we did all the manufacturing and implantation. With that, and this is the unmet need. So many of these are printed polymers, PMMA, PEEK. These are this type of implants, the type of defect. This could be after, I think this is from after a stroke. You have a bleeding, cut up the skull bone, take the skull bone, put it into the freezer, and then wait until the bleeding has stopped and the swallowing has gone down, and then you do I don't know what that's called actually. It's the ascula who make a clamp. You clamp the bone back to place. Normally that resorbs over time, and then you have just the brain and no skull bone anymore. And or cancer. These are the two main ones. The third one is accidents. Accidents are is not that many. It's the stroke and the cancer patients by far, who is the biggest. And to make a 3D print like this, those of you who are in the field, you might have seen these images. There are a lot of people doing 3D printing for these big defects. It's a little bit deceitful because you show the patients before, no skull bone. You show them afterwards, skull bone, it looks nice. But then look at the follow-up numbers after a year. It's like 25% failure if the defect is big. It's ridiculously bad. And many of these are polymer-based or metal-based. And we did, as you saw there earlier, a ceramic titanium mesh. And the reason why it fails is the soft tissue. Soft tissue contact, it becomes bad. And the soft tissue becomes like paper and breaks. Then after a while, this is just broken skin. And there you see the implant below the skin. And of course, this is a bad situation. You get infected and it's just bad. So that's where we came in with this. This I think I said, we have new owners, Leah Cares. We are backed by business angels. So this journey is very different compared to all my others. This has been done with my oldest daughter. It's very different, but she's starting to have quite good sales. At the moment, she has been very fast of getting products out, so the sales is actually picking up, and she had very good clinical data as well. So she was just this week. Now I have my son with me here because he's running another type of business. We also have Indian collaborations, but with her, she is now in Spain starting a clinical trial with this. And here we are backed by business angels. And she has been, when she went through this Uppsala Innovation Center system, I think it was good for her. So this is my therapeutics. We have a pediatrics focus for the cancer. First product is going to be a pure medical device. First one. Second is going to be combination of the device with local treatment of cancer. In this case, it's a little bit different. Here I filed the patent. Then the patent authorities came back and said, I will go through later on, but if the patent tried to cover this table of innovation, I got this corner. The rest of the table was owned by another research institute in Europe. So then I contacted them. I said, I would like to acquire the rest. long negotiation with that tech transfer office. I told you, so I've had a long negotiation with them, and now I have the rights to the table. And when I got the rights to the full table, I have my own patent and their patent, and it's very good. It's very good since tech transfer offices would like to see things grow as well. So it's very heavy towards the end. I didn't need to pay a lot now, I pay later. But their patents are approved. So suddenly my patent strength goes up tremendously. Their patents are approved in Europe and the US. So I sit in a very strong position, much stronger than what I've done otherwise. I'm happy that they will get these researchers connected to the institute. If I'm happy with this, they're going to be wealthy. But I'm happy because without them I wouldn't have been able to raise any money. It wouldn't exist. Okay. Okay, I think I stop there. So you can have, if you have questions, I will say a few words about education, and I'll go into more on the details of all of this.
That's grateful for the time.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
We
Any
take
quick questions if you have, you can just raise, or we'll have a cup of tea there during that discussion also, or maybe during that time also you can talk to Mr. Hakan. Any quick question? I'd like to raise. So if nobody is raising the question, it's a high time for us to go to the tea, but then let me ask questions.
Yes, okay.
Yeah. I'm really impressed with what you said.
I'm really impressed with what you said, that who owns the IP.
Yes.
And I'm really happy to know that in Uppsala you can have your own IP without any interference with the university system.
Yes.
In Indian system, what I have seen that if at all I am working here as a professor or in any academic division, they compulsorily want the university system to consent as far as the IP ownership is concerned, though I am the inventor. But then they want their name to be on the patent. So do you have another system also in Uppsala where the Uppsala University owns the IP? Nothing like that.
No, never. So it's just me, and I can assign the IP. So I have my own holding company. So I normally directly assign my IP to my own company.
Okay.
So I have an own company that takes care of all of that.
Is it
so
true?
I own that company 100% myself. So it's just a way for me to handle.
So is it true in Sweden, all over Sweden that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. By law, the universities are not allowed to have business interest.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Really, it's a lesson
They
for
don't-
us to
Yeah, it
mimic,
is.
hopefully.
It's super good. But for me, if today, maybe not when I was younger, but today it would have been fine if they would have been co-owning as well from the beginning. But then I would like to know, what do they do for me?
True.
If they just take it and just sit on it and say, now I decide, you can't continue with whatever you do.
Yeah, I think that's I think the lesson we should mimic here. That's great.
I don't like that. I think that then they should tell me, okay, we co-own this now together, we initiate it together, you do this, I do that, and then it's at least clear, and we work towards some type of short milestone. When that milestone is done, we're going to transfer the IP to a startup, then the startup owns the IP.
Yeah.
Or whatever now it is, it could be a license. You might, as a university, still like to own the IP, but it needs to be a license. Everything needs to be clear from the beginning. It cannot be a black box that where I submit my IP, because then it takes away your drive, your dream.
Yes.
Everything goes away because otherwise I cannot dream.
I-
You're the one. Because
Agree.
all of this is kind of initially, it goes by you have an idea, say, oh, this is going to be great, and then you get enthusiastic and think that this is something that could be part of creating and it will be good. And that's the way I work. I have these, and it must be the same if you're a researcher. If you don't have, sometimes I think you need to start a grill.
Yeah.
You
That's
light
good.
the fire. At some point you light the fire, and if someone just, and I
Stops
hate
it,
that.
yes.
As the older I become, as soon as someone is against my fire, I normally leave. I just
No, because
I
I
do something
know
else.
how
You know,
tough
yeah.
it is to go through this IP system when institute is involved.
Yes.
So I think I'm facing a lot of problem, but I really like the way this thing is
No, it's
done
good.
there,
It's good.
yeah.
It's up to yourself.
Yeah. So we'll have a quick break for some time, and again we'll proceed further. Professor Hakan has so many things to tell. I'm really impressed. So let us appreciate the very first delivery of Professor Hakan.
Yeah, 10 minutes fine. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we'll take the time.